Hey there, and welcome. So you're planning a flooring project, and you've probably hit this exact question. Should you go with a glued-down floor or a floating one? I mean, they look pretty much the same once they're installed, but believe me, how you get them there makes a world of difference. Well, we're going to clear all that up for you right now.
You know, there's a great quote from a seasoned flooring contractor, James Miller, who says, "The devil is in the details." And that is exactly what we're talking about today. This isn't just some tiny technical detail. It seriously affects how your floor feels under your feet, how it stands up to everyday life, and how easy or not so easy it is to fix down the road.
So that's the big question, right? Glued down or floating? And by the time we're done here, you're not just going to know the difference between the two, you're going to have a really clear idea of which one is the perfect match for your home, your wallet, and yeah, your DIY skills. All right, let's get into it. First things first, we got to meet the two main players on the field. You've got the old school, permanent bond of a glued down floor versus the modern, super user-friendly click system of a floating floor.
So think of glued down flooring as the traditionalist in the room. Every single plank is permanently stuck to the subfloor with this really strong adhesive. It's kind of like a long-term relationship with your floor. Once it's down, it is not going anywhere. And because of that, you get this unbelievably solid, stable surface under your feet. And then you've got the innovator, the floating floor. Instead of all that sticky glue, these planks have this super clever click-lock system. They all snap together to create one big unified surface that just, well, it floats right on top of the subfloor. It's flexible, it's forgiving, and honestly, it's a total dream for anyone who loves a good DIY project.
All right, so now that we know who they are, let's throw them in the ring and see how they stack up. We're going to break down the 5 key areas where these two methods are totally different, so you can see exactly where each one has the upper hand.
First up, installation. And this is where they really go their separate ways. For speed and just plain ease, floating floors are the clear winner. The planks literally click together like puzzle pieces. It's the perfect weekend project. Glued down, though, that's a whole different ballgame. It's slower, it's messier, you have to be super precise with the adhesive, and then you have to wait for it to cure, sometimes for a full day before you can even walk on it.
And this just nails the point home. Like James Miller says, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is a glued-down floor. Look, you're going to be rewarded with a rock-solid result, but man, you've got to have the patience to get there. So what about how they actually feel when you walk on them? This, right here, is where glued-down floors just knock it out of the park. Because they're bonded right to the subfloor, they feel super firm and stable, almost exactly like real hardwood. Floating floors can sometimes feel a little springy or sound a bit hollow, but, little pro tip here, a good quality underlayment can make a huge difference and really cut down on that hollow sound. Okay, let's talk about where you're putting this floor. Think kitchens, basements, places where things can get a little tricky. Glued-down floors generally have better moisture resistance simply because the glue itself acts like an extra seal. Floating floors, on the other hand, are actually better at handling changes in temperature, since they can expand and contract a little more freely. But they absolutely depend on a good moisture barrier underlayment to stay protected.
So what happens if you get a big scratch or a dent in a plank? Well, with a floating floor, it's a piece of cake. You can basically unlock and swap out a single plank pretty easily. With a glued-down floor, it's a totally different story. You're going to be on your hands and knees fighting with old adhesive. It's a tough, painstaking job, which gives floating floors a massive advantage for long-term maintenance.
And finally, let's talk money. When it comes to the budget, floating floors are usually the more affordable option. You skip buying all that adhesive, and hey, if you're doing it yourself, you're saving a ton of cash on labor. Glued-down floors need a bigger investment up front for materials and labor. The trade-off is you often get a floor that feels more permanent and can last for decades. Okay, so when we lay it all out like this, the whole picture just snaps into focus, right? You can see it at a glance. Glued down is the winner for that solid feel and moisture resistance, but floating completely dominates when it comes to easy installation, repairs, and cost. Think of this as your ultimate cheat sheet. All right, we've got all the facts. So, how in the world do you actually choose? In this next part, we're going to go from theory to practice. I'm going to ask you a few simple questions to help you figure out which one is the absolute winner for your home.
Okay, question number 1. Is what you need, above all else, a floor that is completely rock solid and permanent? I'm talking about a busy hallway, a family room where the kids are always running around, or maybe even a commercial space that's going to take a beating every single day.
If you're nodding your head yes right now,
then my friend, Glued Down is your champion. It's the heavy hitter. It's built to last. You won't get any of that shifting, creaking, or flexing, and it handles heavy furniture like an absolute champ. For those high-traffic areas, it's the pro-level choice. All right, let's flip the script. Are you the type who loves a good weekend project? Do you want an installation that's fast, clean, and maybe even a little forgiving if you make a small mistake? Do you want to work smarter, not harder?
If that sounds like you, then a floating floor is your new best friend. It is the definition of user-friendly. It's quick, you don't need a bunch of specialized tools, and here's the kicker. You can often lay it right over your existing floor, which saves you a ton of prep work. It's the go-to for most rooms in a house, like living rooms and bedrooms.
Okay, now for the big one, the one that trips a lot of people up, moisture. Are you putting this new floor in a basement, a kitchen, maybe an entryway where wet shoes are a thing? This is where making the right call now saves you a massive headache later on. So here's the deal with moisture. A glued-down floor does offer better natural protection because the glue itself forms a barrier. But you can definitely use a floating floor. You just absolutely cannot skip the high-quality moisture-resistant underlayment. And listen, for either method, this part is non-negotiable. Your subfloor has to be clean, level, and totally dry before you start. All right, so let's boil all of this down. When you get right to it, the entire decision-making process really comes down to one simple idea. It's all about stability versus flexibility. It boils down to this. What do you value more? The rock-solid, permanent feel you get from a glued-down floor, or the easy, user-friendly flexibility of a floating floor? That's really the core trade-off you're making. And you know, that James Miller quote really sums it all up perfectly, especially for the modern option. Why reinvent the wheel when a click will do? It's just a great line that captures the simple, effective genius behind the most popular flooring choice out there today.
So there you have it. You figured out the foundation of your floor, the how it all works. You picked a side between permanence and flexibility. Now comes the really fun part. What style, what color, and what texture are you going to choose to look at and walk on every single day? That's when your project really comes to life.